Hello everyone, I am Shruthilekha, Assistant Professor of English, A.D.M.COLLEGE for Women, NAGAPATTINAM. Today, I invite you to dive into a rising field of literary study, Blue Humanities, an area that reorients our gaze from land to sea and from familiar to fluid and from terrestrial to tidal. It is a pleasure to be here with you today to explore an exciting and emerging field that invites us to read literature through a different lens, the Blue Humanities. While much of literary and environmental scholarship has focused on the land, forests, deserts, and mountains, the Blue Humanities asks us to turn our gaze towards the ocean. It seeks to understand how seas, rivers, and aquatic spaces shape human culture, imagination, and identity. In this talk, I will explore how Blue Humanities intersects with English literature, how it reshapes our readings of classics and contemporary texts, and why this shift in perspective matters, both intellectually and ecologically in our present time. The term Blue Humanities refers to an interdisciplinary field that studies the cultural, historical, ecological, and literary significance of the sea and aquatic environments. It invites us to rethink how literature represents the ocean not merely as a setting but as a central character, as a space of history, emotion, danger, and possibility. The Blue Humanities also push us to recognize the material and metaphorical role of water in shaping human experience, whether it is colonial voyages across oceans, shipwreck narratives, island imaginations, or modern climate fiction. Water is everywhere in literature, yet until recently it was not examined as a distinct subject of critical inquiry. The Blue Humanities seeks to fill this gap. The term Blue Humanities was coined by Steve Menz, a scholar of early modern literature and oceanic studies. Steve Menz began using this term in the late 2000s to describe a growing interdisciplinary approach that brings together literary studies, marine history, and environmental humanities, and also oceanography. His work focuses on how the ocean as both as a physical reality and a cultural symbol has shaped human thought, creativity, and ecological consciousness, especially in literature. Despite covering over 70% of Earth's surface, oceans have long been marginalized in humanities research. As oceans advocate, David Hellberg notes more is known about the dark side of the moon than ocean is depth. The Blue Humanities actively challenges this terracentric and land-based way of thinking, advocating for new epistemologies that embrace fluidity, connectivity, and urgent environmental realities of our changing oceans. The ocean's presence in literature is ancient, beginning with the foundational narratives like Homer's Odyssey, which chronicles an epic oceanic voyage. Over centuries, the focus shifted from mere sailing mechanics to the ocean's profound influence on human experience. Robinson Crusoe marks the birth of modern novels intertwined with the sea adventures, while Melville's Moby Dick elevated the ocean into a metaphysical and meditative space, exploring humanity's complex relationship with nature. Many classical works of English literature involve the sea, yet we often read them with a land-based assumptions. For instance, Shakespeare's The Tempest begins with a shipwreck and is set on a mysterious island. But a Blue Humanity reading asks, what does the sea do in this play? It is the force that derives the story, isolates character, and brings about transformation. The ocean becomes a metaphor for both disruption and rebirth. Similarly, in Coleridge's The Rime of Ancient Mariner, the sea is not just a backdrop for a moral tale. It becomes a spiritual and ecological space where killing the albatross, an act against nature, leads to psychological and cosmic punishment. The sea reflects the mariner's inner turmoil and environmental guilt. In Herman Melville's Moby Dick, the whale hunt has long been seen as a symbol of human obsession. But from a Blue Humanities viewpoint, it also represents the early stages of industrialized marine exploitation. The novel prefigures question of oceanic extinction, ecological hubris, and humanity trouble or relationship with the sea. One of the richest periods to explore maritime culture through the lens of blue humanities is the early modern era. Roughly from the late 15th to early 18th century, this was a time when England was becoming a seafaring power and the ocean became central to both national identity and literary imagination. The seas were no longer distant or mythical, they were political, economic, and personal spaces. Maritime culture, which includes navigation, piracy, trade, exploration, shipwreck, and imperial expansion, deeply shaped the literature of this period. In early modern prose, maritime culture is evident in travel narratives and colonial accounts. Writers like Richard Hakluyt compiled tales of exploration that celebrated English expansion and positioned the sea as a space of national destiny. These texts combine facts, fiction, and ideology, reflecting a deep intertwining of literature with emerging imperial power. Moreover, the ship became a microcosm of society. It was a space of labor, hierarchy, discipline, and also resistance. Maritime life challenged traditional norms. People at sea lived differently from those on land. Literature captured this fluid social order, with sailors often portrayed as rough, liminal figures who transgress class and gender boundaries. From a blue humanity perspective, early modern English literature allows us to trace how oceanic thinking emerged alongside capitalism, colonialism, and ecological consciousness. The sea was not only a space of wonder and adventure, it was also a site of violence, conquest, and exploitation. Reading maritime culture in early modern texts reminds us that the ocean has always been a stage for global transformation. By revisiting these works today, we gain insight into how literature has historically shaped our perceptions of the sea, both as a material reality and as a symbolic force. In the context of contemporary South Asia, the Blue Humanities offers a powerful framework to explore literature's engagement with coastal culture, oceanic histories, climate realities, and post-colonial identity. With thousands of kilometers of coastline, vibrant maritime trade histories, and communities whose lives are intertwined with the sea, South Asia provides rich ground for blue humanities inquiry. Contemporary South Asian writers, particularly those writings in English, are increasingly turning to the sea just as a setting but as a subject, grappling with the themes like displacement, environmental changes, and colonial memory and cultural fluidity. One of the most prominent examples is Amitav Ghosh. In The Hungry Tide 2004, he explores the fragile ecosystem of the Sundarbans, a deltic regions at the confluence of the Ganges and the Bay of Bengal. The novel foregrounds the lives of riverine and coastal communities, their knowledge system, endangered species like the ivory dolphin, and the ever-present threat of tides and cyclones. Ghosh's narratives shows us how environmental and cultural memory are shaped by water, an idea central to blue humanities. In Guns Island 2019, Ghosh moves further into the Anthropocene discourse, connecting rising sea levels, migrations, and myth across continents. From the Sundarbans to Venice, he uses water as a transnational force, linking ecological crisis to global histories of trade, slavery, and folklore. Beyond Ghosh, other South Asian voices contribute to this emerging discourse. Writers like Romila Thapar and S. Venkatakrishnan have re-examined ancient maritime trade in Tamil and Sanskrit literature, while poets such as Meena Kandasamy and Tishani Doshi evoke oceanic imagery to explore gender, violence, exile, and ecological growth. Importantly, in a post-colonial frame, the sea is also a space of trauma and resistance. During colonial rule, oceans were used to transport indentured laborers, enslaved people, and soldiers across continents. Today, the memory of those who journeys haunts South Asian diaspora literature, seen in the works of M.G. Vasanji, V.S. Naipaul, and David Levine, where the sea represents both rupture and survival. The Blue Humanities in South Asia also address contemporary climate justice, especially in regions like the Maldives, coastal Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, where communities are increasingly threatened by the sea level rise, cyclones, and coastal erosion. Literature coming from these areas, including oral tradition, plays, regional language narratives, offers local perspectives on global maritime crises. Moreover, fisher folklore culture, once marginalized in dominant literary narratives, are being recentered through ethnographic fiction, poetry, and performance, highlighting the blue ecology of caste, labor, and belonging. Beyond text, the sea has long been a powerful image in visual and cultural imagination, influencing how literature represents an oceanic experience. In literature, visual metaphors of the sea, waves, storms, horizon, shipwrecks are deeply tied to emotions, memories, and transformation. Writers often evoke the sea not only as a setting but as a living force with texture, sound, and movement. This visuality enhances the immersive power of the text, making the sea felt as much as real. For instance, in romantic poetry, painters like J.M.W. Turner and poets like Wordsworth and Byron shared an aesthetic vision of the sublime sea, both beautiful and terrifying. This visual literary exchange shaped how generations of readers imagined the ocean's vastness and mystery. Even in modern and post-colonial literature, visual representation of the sea through symbols like boats, islands, coastlines, coral reefs, and underwater ruins reflects cultural narratives of migration, identity, loss, and hope. In Caribbean and African diasporic writing, the sea is often depicted as both as a grave and a cradle, a space where ancestral memory is submerged but never lost. Furthermore, many contemporary literary works use visual language borrowed from film and media, portraying the sea as dynamic, dangerous, and alluring. The influence of visual culture, cinema, photography, even satellite imagery has reshaped how authors write about oceans in the Anthropocene. In the Blue Humanities, this interplay visual and textual oceans reminds us that our understanding of the sea is always mediated, not just through science or story, but also through image and imaginations. So, why does the Blue Humanities matter in English literature? First, it decenters the land. Okay? It challenges the idea that history, culture, and literature happen only on the solid ground. It helps us think about fluidity, movement, and interconnection. Second, it fosters ecological awareness. Literature has the power to stir emotion, to shift perspective, and to move people toward empathy. By reading with the blue lens, we engage more deeply with environmental concerns and become more attuned to the maritime world that sustains life. Third, it promotes interdisciplinary thinking. Blue Humanities connects literature with marine biology, oceanography, geography, and cultural studies. It shows the storytelling is not separate from science, but often part of how we understand the world. This field promotes public engagement and encourages new narratives about our oceans, advocating for a holistic understanding, the Transian near metaphor to embrace the profound material realities of the maritime world. So, in the final, we are going to see about the key points in this Blue Humanities. First, it is an ocean-centered thinking. Moves beyond viewing the sea as just as a metaphor of backdrop, treats the ocean as a dynamic, historical, and ecological force. Second, it is an interdisciplinary force, combines insights from literature, environmental science, history, post-colonial studies, and also marine science. Next, its key themes are human-sea interactions, maritime history and empire, climate change and rising seas, indigenous and land-ocean knowledge, migration, slavery, and trade routes, blue aesthetic in art and media. And The prominent thinkers in the blue humanities era are, we already know the Steve Mendes is the one who coined the term blue humanities, promotes the blue cultural studies and sea chaotic energies. Next, Dan Barrington explores Shakespeare and the ocean. And next one is Hester Blum. He works on ocean archives and maritime literature. The examples of blue humanities in English literature are Moby Dick by Herman Melville, The Sea Around Us by Rachel Carson, The Hungry Tide by Amitav Ghosh, and The Poetry by Derek Walcott and Seamus Henry. To conclude, blue humanities open new depths in English literature. They help us to see that sea is not just water on the page, it is a dynamic space of culture, crisis, and creativity. As we face the challenge of the 21st century, climatic change, environmental injustice, rising oceans, we must learn to read differently. We must listen to the language of waves, the stories of salt and storm, and the silence beneath the surface. English literature, when we read through the lens of blue humanities, become not only a record of human experience, but also called to imagine blue futures, fluid, inclusive, and sustainable. Now we are going to see some previous year questions asked in UGC NET about blue humanities. Who is considered one of the pioneers in articulating the concept of blue humanities? The answer is Steve Mendes. Second one, blue humanities primarily focus on which of the following? Option A, forest conservation literature. Option B, psychological response to trauma. Option C, representation of ocean and maritime life in culture. Option D, gender roles in Victorian fiction. Yes, the answer is representation of oceans and marine life in culture. Next question, which of these novels is most relevant for a blue humanities analysis? Option A, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Option B, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Option C, The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Option D, Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. The answer is The Old Man and Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Next question, which of the following best describes the goal of blue humanities? Option A, to analyze land-based eco-critical theories, to study the representation of aquatic and oceanic studies in human culture. Option C, to promote industrial use of marine ecosystem. Option D, to interpret myths in underwater archaeology. The answer is B, to study the representation of aquatic and oceanic system in human culture. Next question, which of the following fields most overlap with the blue humanities? Option A, astrobiology. Option B, oceanography. Option C, archaeology. Option D, linguistics. The answer is oceanography. Next question, in blue humanities, the ocean is seen as option A, purely symbolic setting, a resource to be exploited. Option C, a dynamic culture and ecological space. Option D, a mythological invention. Yes, the answer is C, a dynamic cultural and ecological space. Next, an important question. In Amitav Ghosh, The Hungry Tide is an example of blue humanities in literature because, yes, the answer is it explores human-ocean relationship in the Sundarbans. Next, which of these statements is true about the blue humanities approach? Option A, it ignores scientific data in literary interpretation. Option B, it only analyzes historical seafaring literature. Option C, it promotes cross-disciplinary study between humanities and marine sciences. Option D, it excludes non-Western text. Yes, the answer is C, it promotes cross-disciplinary study between humanities and marine sciences. Next one, what is the concept of oceanic turn in humanities refers to? The answer is a shift from land-centered to sea-centered cultural analysis. Next, which environmental concern is most closely associated with the blue humanities? The options are A, deforestation, B, plastic pollution in oceans, Option C, fossil fuels used in transport. Option D, urban air quality. The answer is B, plastic pollution in oceans. These are some of the important questions of Blue Humanities in English literature.